It was supposed to be just another quiet evening at a small diner on the edge of town. The kind of place where regulars come in for coffee and strangers pass through without anyone noticing. But on this night, something happened that no one could have predicted. The world would soon learn about a billionaire named NERBillionaire, a young waitress with nerves of steel, and a moment that would ripple far beyond the walls of that little diner. The waitress had been working long hours, her smile steady even when the day got tough. She didn't know her every move was being quietly observed by someone sitting in the corner booth, dressed simply, blending in like any other customer. That man was NERBillionaire, known worldwide for his business empire. But tonight, he wasn't there to talk deals or wealth. He was simply there, watching life unfold around him. And then the unexpected struck. A group walked in with bad intentions. The room filled with tension, customers froze, and fear spread quickly. But instead of panicking, the young waitress did something remarkable. She stayed calm. Her voice didn't shake, her hands didn't tremble, and somehow she managed to bring a sense of control to a situation that could have gone very wrong. NERBillionaire noticed every detail, every brave choice she made, and in that moment, he knew this wasn't just an ordinary girl serving tables. The story didn't end when the danger passed. That night became the beginning of something far bigger. NERBillionaire's next move would not only change the life of that waitress, but also shock the world in ways nobody expected. And just when it seemed like the story couldn't get more intense, another twist began to unfold. DS. Someone who had been underestimated and mocked by popular teens, decided it was finally time to take his stand. Two very different stories about courage. Power and unexpected revenge were about to collide. What NERBillionaire did next, and how DS's bold decision connected to it all, left everyone asking the same question: what happens when the tables finally turn? Would you like me to make this intro sound like a spoken YouTube narration with pacing cues and emphasis, or keep it in this storytelling prose style? NERBillionaire had always lived in a world where people chased his attention, where every handshake came with hidden motives. But that night in the diner, he saw something rare. The waitress wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't acting for recognition. Her calmness in the face of fear was real, raw, and unforgettable. For someone who had built his empire by studying human behavior, this moment hit differently. He couldn't shake the thought that maybe true strength wasn't about money or fame, but about courage shown when no one expects it. As the news of the incident spread quietly among locals, NERBillionaire remained silent. To him, this wasn't just another story to headline the papers. He had seen something that stirred him deeply, something that made him question what he was really doing with all his influence. Why did a stranger's bravery matter so much to him? He didn't have the answer yet, but he knew he couldn't walk away without finding one. Meanwhile, far from the glare of luxury and power, DS was living a very different reality. For years, he had been the target of whispers, jokes, and cruel laughter from popular teens who thought they had the right to decide who mattered and who didn't. Ds carried those moments with him, not as scars that weakened him, but as fuel building quietly in the background. Every insult, every smirk, every careless word only added to the fire. He had been waiting, watching, and preparing for the moment when he could finally stand tall. The threads of these two lives, one of wealth and global influence, the other of struggle and silent endurance, were beginning to move closer. What connected them was not yet clear, but the storm was building. Something powerful was on the horizon, and when it struck, nothing would be the same. Do you want me to carry the next part into the climax buildup? Or keep layering more character backstory and tension before the big turning point? NERBillionaire couldn't shake the image of the waitress standing tall that night. He had replayed it in his mind more times than he could count. Her calm voice echoing through chaos wasn't just bravery, it was leadership in its purest form. In his world of boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, leadership often came with titles, contracts, and wealth. But here was a young woman who had nothing to protect her but her own strength, and somehow she had steadied an entire room. He began to wonder if the very empire he built was missing something human. Something real. Yet while he searched for answers, another story was unfolding. DS's world was far different, filled with shadows of rejection and echoes of ridicule. The popular teens who had mocked him never understood the weight of their actions. To them, it was harmless, just words tossed around in crowded hallways. But to DS, every moment cut deeper, shaping a determination he carried quietly. He wasn't looking for pity. He was looking for change, for the chance to show that those who had written him off would one day have no choice but to notice him. The conflict between these lives seemed impossible to connect. Yet an invisible thread tied them together. NERBillionaire, with limitless resources, was beginning to question the emptiness of his influence. DS, with nothing but his willpower, was preparing to challenge the very structures that had pushed him down. And somewhere in between stood the Waitress, unknowingly becoming the bridge between two storms. Whispers spread about NERBillionaire's sudden interest in small-town lives. People speculated, wondering why a man of his stature would return again and again to a modest diner. At the same time, DS's quiet plans were beginning to take shape. He watched, he listened, and he learned. The tension in both worlds was growing, like thunder rumbling in the distance. Everyone felt something was about to break, but no one knew just how far the impact would reach. Do you want the next continuation to start weaving their paths together? Or should I expand each subplot further before they collide? The diner had become more than just a late-night stop for NERBillionaire. Each time he returned, he studied the Waitress more closely, not as someone working for tips, but as a symbol of the strength he couldn't buy. Every quiet smile she gave customers, every patient gesture, carried a truth he couldn't ignore. It was as if she held a key to something he had been searching for all along. Yet, behind that calm exterior, he could sense a weight she carried. One that mirrored the same questions haunting him: what does it really mean to have power, and who truly controls it? At the same time, DS was drawing closer to his breaking point. The laughter of the popular teens still echoed in his memory, but now it no longer wounded him, it sharpened him. He wasn't the same person they once dismissed. His silence had turned into strategy, his isolation into fuel. Every move he planned was precise, every step calculated to shift the balance. The world had never given him a voice, so he was about to take one. The tension around him grew heavier, almost like the air itself was waiting for him to act. Two lives, one built on endless influence, the other on years of quiet endurance, were unknowingly rushing toward collision. The Waitress stood in the middle, unaware that her calm presence had already changed the course of both men. Rumors spread faster now. Some whispered that NERBillionaire was preparing to do something no one expected, while others noticed DS moving differently, his confidence rising in a way that unsettled those who once mocked him. The night everything would come to a head was approaching. The storm that had been building for so long was ready to break. The question wasn't if it would happen, it was how and who would walk away changed forever. The world was about to witness a moment where courage, revenge, and power would collide. And no one could predict what would happen when the first strike finally landed. Would you like me to carry the final resolution in the next part as a dramatic conclusion? Or keep it open-ended for a possible sequel episode? Just when it seemed like the storm was about to break, something unexpected shifted the ground beneath them all. NERBillionaire had been preparing to take a bold step, one that would put his name in the spotlight for reasons far different than money. But before he could act, a secret about the Waitress surfaced, one that no one saw coming. She wasn't just a small-town worker quietly holding her own. There were whispers that she had once been connected to a story buried deep in NERBillionaire's own past, a decision he had made years ago that changed countless lives. The realization shook him. Suddenly, the woman he thought of as an anchor of calm was part of a chain of choices he had long tried to forget. At the same time, DS's quiet rise was no longer hidden. The popular teens who had mocked him began to sense the shift. He wasn't reacting like the boy they once pushed around. Instead, he carried himself with an energy that unsettled them. And then, just as tension reached its peak, one of those teens made a mistake digging too far, uncovering DS's plan before it was ready. The discovery didn't weaken DS, it forced him to accelerate. Now, what was once careful preparation turned into a countdown. And there was no stopping it. The threads that seemed separate were tightening fast. NERBillionaire, torn between the truth of his past and the pull of his conscience, knew that whatever move he made would change how the world saw him forever. The waitress, caught in the middle of forces she never asked for, became the symbol both men were drawn toward. And DS, driven by years of quiet rage, was no longer.